Hi guys, George here from Zero P Productions. For years now, I've been covering Skyrim mods here on YouTube. I've done modded playthroughs of both Morrowind and Skyrim, and now I'm playing through Oblivion. Given the focus on Elder Scrolls content here on the channel, a common question I get is about the Elder Scrolls 6, my thoughts on what we know so far, and what I would like to see. While we won't be seeing anything new about the game at E3 2019, I figured it was still worth discussing now, and if anything, I can make an updated video next year, or whenever we get more information about the game. Starting off, let's talk about what we know for sure about the Elder Scrolls 6. Right now, we have the announcement teaser, as well as some small tidbits of information that have come out from interviews, as well as the video that Bethesda did discussing the 25th anniversary of the Elder Scrolls as a series. We know that the Elder Scrolls 6 is one of two games in development by Bethesda Game Studios, with the other one being Starfield, which was announced at E3 in 2018. Starfield is set to come out before the Elder Scrolls 6, so it'll be a few years before we can expect to see the next Elder Scrolls game. We know that the game will still use the creation engine, which was used for Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76, and is based upon the Gamebryo engine, which was used for Morrowind, Oblivion, and Fallout 3. Now, there's a lot of discussion and even some arguments about using the creation engine for the next Elder Scrolls game, and I'll get into my thoughts on that later in this video. It's worth noting that Starfield will also be made on the creation engine. We don't have an official title for the game yet, but we do know that Bethesda filed a trademark for something called Redfall. More on that later as well. And that's really all we know for sure. Oh, and we know that Shirley Curry will be in it. We don't know in what capacity, but she did get to go out to Bethesda and meet the team. Now, let's talk about what we can speculate from what we know so far. Given that we're several years out from the game's release, it's safe to say that it'll be a next-gen game. Starfield will almost definitely be next-gen, likely a launch title or released soon after the next-gen system's release. And the Elder Scrolls 6 will be after that. In some ways, it's kinda weird. We had both Oblivion and Skyrim released on the Xbox 360 and PS3, but we won't have a new Elder Scrolls game on this generation at all. Yes, we have Skyrim Special Edition, and we got the Elder Scrolls Online, but we didn't get a new game in the main series. I mean, just the fact that it'll be at least 10 years between the release of Skyrim and the next main game is kinda crazy when you think about it. From the teaser that we saw, we can maybe, and I really mean maybe, say that we can kind of guess where the game might take place. Is that enough speculation for you? Yes, very, very speculative. There's a lot of speculation on what the teaser is alluding to in terms of a location. Just based on geography and terrain, my best bet is High Rock or Hammerfell. Personally, I would like to see a combination of the two. I'm not expecting to see both High Rock and Hammerfell in their entirety. That would be a huge game, and it would take a long time to really fill with NPCs, cities, and quests. I don't know if any developer is ready to undertake that kind of commitment. My best bet is that we'll see the border region of the two, as well as some of the surrounding areas. Honestly, I think it makes more sense to have some of the two provinces, since it would mean a bit more variety in terms of the locations. Hammerfell is more than just desert, but I still think having a combination of the two means more variation in general. Having the two would really give us a nice variety, the same way that we had various biomes in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. Having the two provinces could also make sense given the rumored title, Redfall. The fact that the trademark isn't for High Rock, Hammerfell, or any other province allows them to market the game in regards to an in-universe event, the same way that Oblivion was marketed around the Oblivion Crisis. Having the game set across both provinces would also have some cool implications for the story. High Rock is still a member of the Empire, while Hammerfell established independence from them and continues to resist Thalmor rule. With how much they established the Thalmor as an adversary during Skyrim, I'm fully expecting the game to either revolve around the Thalmor conflict, or, at the very least, for it to be a prominent series of quests. That being said, I'm not really expecting the Thalmor conflict to end with this game. I feel like to really wrap up the Thalmor conflict properly, you would need a game set in Somerset. Should the game take place in High Rock and Hammerfell, one location I would love to see is the island of Balfiera, the home of Adamantine Tower, also known as Durrani Tower. I'm not going to get into all the lore about the towers and everything, I don't want this video to be an hour long. But to put it simply, the towers are physical anchors that hold Nirn together. And by the events of Skyrim, many of the towers have been deactivated or destroyed. Durrani Tower is one of the few towers still active. It's said to be the oldest structure in all of Nirn. There's a few things we can speculate about the gameplay and overall gameplay design based on the fact that it's an Elder Scrolls game. it's safe to say that in the end we can expect certain things. It'll be an action-adventure RPG. There will be a third-person mode as well as a first-person mode. I expect that combat will likely be similar to Skyrim's, although it's very unlikely that we'll see shouts again, as keeping in line with the series, we'd be playing a different player character. However, given the fact that we just had shouts in the previous game, it would be cool to see some sort of special ability or powers that can be learned over the course of the game. Having shouts made Skyrim stand out from other fantasy games, and having another type of ability would do the same for the Elder Scrolls 6. In regards to the engine, there's a few different ways to approach this. A lot of people are of the mindset and the opinion that the creation engine is too outdated to make good AAA games anymore. This is sorta true. Yes, the version of creation engine that we've seen more recently for Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 feels a bit clunky and outdated. This doesn't mean that the creation engine has to be abandoned or scrapped entirely. An engine is simply the core code of a game. Within an engine, developers add other components, such as a rendering engine, physics, sound, scripting, AI, the list goes on and on. Because of this, a lot of different components can be used within an engine. They can be replaced, updated, and completely overhauled. The version of Creation Engine used for Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76 isn't necessarily the same engine that we can expect to see with Starfield or the Elder Scrolls 6. One of the reasons that these games are years out from release is because Bethesda has stated that they are developing new technology to be used within the engine. Starfield will be the first implementation of this new creation engine, and the Elder Scrolls 6 will be an updated version of that. Given the time being spent on these games, it means that Bethesda has the chance to really overhaul the creation engine and make the games pretty indistinguishable. An engine does not determine what a game will look like. It doesn't determine the game's graphics. A great example is the Unreal Engine. Both BioShock and Mass Effect were made on Unreal. They don't look alike, they don't play alike, they don't have the same control schemes, etc., etc. An engine is a core set of code on which developers can build everything else, but it doesn't dictate what the game will be like. We can even look at Bethesda games to make the same point. Morrowind, Oblivion, and Fallout 3 were all made by Bethesda in the Gamebryo engine. Morrowind looks and plays nothing like Oblivion. Oblivion and Fallout 3, you might be able to draw more similarities between design and mechanics, but even still, the games don't look alike. It is fair to be skeptical of the creation engine being used for upcoming games. Frankly, I don't want Starfield or the Elder Scrolls 6 to be made with the current implementation we have of this engine either. I think that there's a lot of benefit to using the creation engine moving forward, but I agree that it's in need of a total overhaul. The creation engine has the benefit of being very approachable for mod authors. It's something that Bethesda is familiar with, given that they've been working with it for years, and it allows them to develop their own technology in-house. They're not the first devs to stick with an engine for such a long time. One example I like to use is Halo. Halo 2, 3, ODST, Reach, and 4 all used the same underlying engine, and the game changed a lot over the years in terms of graphics and gameplay. If I didn't know anything about engines or the industry and just approached games very casually, I never would have guessed that they were all using the same base engine. Now, onto my favorite part of this video. Let's talk about what I personally would like to see outside of what we already know or what we can speculate about the game so far. One thing I want more than anything is more variation in terms of weapons and armor. In Skyrim, we had various weapons and armor sets, iron, steel, dwarven, etc. That being said, we really only had one style of iron armor, one style of steel, one style for leather. You get where I'm going with this. The thing is, not every race is going to use the exact same style for any of those base sets. Each race is going to have their own take on those materials, and we've seen that across the different games. Morrowind's iron armor is different from Oblivion's, which is different from Skyrim's. I'm not saying that I expect to see 10 different variants for iron armor, steel armor, leather armor, and so forth, but I would love for there to be more variation in general. Having different models helps to diversify the world, enemies, guards, you name it. We've seen ZeniMax Online use different racial motifs in the Elder Scrolls Online, and several mods for Skyrim bring back weapon styles from the previous games and add them into the leveled lists. In terms of overall gameplay, I really hope that Bethesda emphasizes the RPG elements of the game. While I enjoyed the freedom of leveling in Skyrim, I kinda missed the more class-oriented system that we had in Morrowind and Oblivion. I get that it's not for everyone, so ideally there would be some sort of compromise. Like having a setting at character creation that lets you choose which way you'd want to play. the same way that Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 let you choose between regular or hardcore mode early on. In regards to role-playing, I really hope that Bethesda sticks with a silent protagonist, and frankly, I'd be surprised if they didn't. Bethesda noted that the voiced protagonists in Fallout 4 weren't as well received as they had hoped. I think it can be done well, just look at Mass Effect as well as the newer Dragon Age games. However, I personally don't think it fits with a Bethesda game, and especially not for the Elder Scrolls. To me, it would really take me out of the moment if I had my character speaking for me in an Elder Scrolls game. On top of that, if they were going to have voiced protagonists for the Elder Scrolls 6, it would take a lot of time. You would need 20 different voice actors, one for each race, and then double that for both male and female. Now, speaking of the player character, I don't want them to be another fabled hero like the Dragonborn. I would personally prefer if they were more of a random schmuck, like the hero of Kvatch in Oblivion, or even the Nerevarine from Morrowind. And yes, I realize that sounds like a contradiction. However, there is a difference between the Dragonborn and the Nerevarine. The Dragonborn is chosen by Akatosh and born with dragon blood, even though they don't realize this until the events of Skyrim. The Nerevarine, however, isn't any specific individual. There are many who might fit the basic requirements to become Nerevarine, but the journey itself involves following a series of steps and quests in order to fulfill the other requirements. To me, that's much more interesting for character development and story, achieving greatness rather than being born with it. In terms of quests, I hope we see a lot less focus on Radiant quests and more focus on fully realized side quests, guild quest lines, and companions and characters that we care about. I think Fallout 4 was a step in the right direction for companions. We had an approval system, companion-specific quest lines, and even romances. It's a big improvement over Skyrim's followers, who were all pretty one-dimensional. Aside from Serana, none of your potential followers really had much character to them. They just kind of stood there, usually in your way. I personally don't care too much if they include romance or not. To me, it's one of those things where I like it when it's done well, and when it's not even worth having. I'd rather have no romance than ones that aren't fully fleshed out. It's why I wasn't crazy about marriage in Skyrim. You do a favor for someone, throw on a necklace, and boom, you can get married. In regards to guilds, I miss the way that it worked in Morrowind and Oblivion. The questlines were longer, and you really felt like you were working your way up the ranks. Having guild halls spread across the province made more sense to me, and allowed for you to interact with more characters along the way. I miss the Fighters Guild, and I would love to see it return in the next game. While the Mages Guild has been disbanded, we have both the Synod and the College of Whispers. You don't even have to make both of them joinable. Just have one joinable, but the other still has a presence in the game. So, we've talked gameplay, quests, and characters. Now, let's talk cities. I want cities. Big cities. Going from Oblivion to Skyrim, it's crazy the difference in terms of design. Oblivion had these really cool, really well-sized cities, as well as the Imperial City, which I still constantly get lost in. Skyrim had a few cities, but half the hold capitals didn't really have walls or anything, and were more so villages than they were cities. I know this was intentional on Bethesda's part, but to me, it got old. I wanted each hold to have its own unique city. I wanted them all to feel lively. I want the world to feel populated and lived in. I want to see Oblivion-scale cities in the next game with the attention to detail that we've come to expect from places like the Imperial City, not to mention Vivec and Mournhold from Morrowind. And finally, mods. There's really not too much for me to say here. As someone who covers mods and someone who just loves the modding community overall, I want to see Bethesda remain committed to supporting mods in their games. I would be really surprised if we didn't get a new creation kit, as well as in-game mod support the same way that we did with Skyrim Special Edition and Fallout 4. As someone who's never really been a huge fan of Creation Club, I can take it or leave it. That being said, if they are going to continue with it, they really need to find a way to update the Creation Club storefront without screwing up people's modded games each and every time. Aside from that, I really don't care if they keep Creation Club. It doesn't really affect me or get in my way, aside from the updates. But that's why I just completely disabled auto updates for Skyrim on Steam. It's not ideal, but hey, it just works. And that's all for today. Truth be told, I probably could have made this video 5 times as long and still have had more to say after. But in the end, I still wanted to make the most concise video that I could. But suffice it to say, this is a topic that's very important to me and my channel. Like I said, I doubt this will be the last time I make a video on the Elder Scrolls 6. I'm more than happy to make more discussion videos as more information is released, as well as gameplay eventually. I'll probably do another wishlist type video at that point, and those videos might even be shorter now that I've had the chance to say everything that I have to say in this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about The Elder Scrolls 6, what you would like to see, and how much you agree or disagree with what I had to say. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.